talk about how the government is planning to ensure water security for the rural households. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has recently released the operational guidelines of Jal Jeevan Mission, which is central government's initiative to provide functional household tap connections to every rural household by 2024. Now, out of 17.87 crore rural households in the country, about 14.6 crore, which account for 81.67%, are yet to have household tap connections for water. The Jal Jeevan scheme will be implemented through institutional mechanism at 4 levels: national, state, district and Gram Panchayat or its subcommittees. Women will play a bigger role in the scheme, and the Pani Samitis or the user group will decide about the user fee for sustainability of the scheme. For more on the scheme, we are joined by a distinguished panel of guests today. Let me first introduce the guests to you, beginning with Mr. Parameshwaran Iyer, the Secretary of Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation of the Government of India. We also have with us Dr. Shamal Kumar Sarkar, Senior Director, Natural Resource and Climate. And we also have with us Ms. Urmi Goswami, Assistant Editor of the Economic Times. Welcome, all of you. Let me first begin with you, Mr. Iyer, since the nodal ministry for the scheme is the Ministry of Jal Shakti and your department. So let us know more about these guidelines and how this scheme is going to be operationalized or implemented on the ground.
Sure. As you mentioned yourself, another very big, bold idea announced by the Honorable Prime Minister on 15th August 2019 in his first Independence Day speech of his second tenure. So, the government has provided basic services in different sectors over the last 5 years, whether it's cooking gas cylinders or toilets or bank accounts or housing. They have really delivered on these basic services. And in line with that, now it was time to announce that every rural household would have what we call a functional household tap connection. So as envisioned by the Honorable Prime Minister, this program is to be rolled out over the next 5 years. And as you yourself mentioned, the plan is to go from about 18 or 19%, which is the current coverage of tap water in rural households, to 100% in just 5 years. So it's extremely ambitious. But as the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned, this government delivers what it commits to. And in terms of the operational guidelines, which were launched by the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday, these spell out, more the details about the program. It's got a lot of flexibility because in India, given its diversity, one size will not fit all. But the key principles, the parameters, how to set about it, they're all laid out in these operational guidelines, which were prepared in consultation with the state governments. Because as you know, water, like sanitation, is a state subject. And we have had several rounds of consultations, regional meetings, discussions with non-government organizations, the private sector, and all that input, a technical committee which was set up, a task force, all that input has gone into framing of these guidelines. Okay. And we are looking forward to the state governments rolling them out. Implementation is already underway. So this will just give it another boost and more clarity.
Okay, Mr. Iyer, let's understand 2 more aspects of the guidelines and the scheme here as well, because if you look at the guidelines, there are 2 things which come up. One is that it says that the women will play a very large role out there. One is how, and second is the Pani Samitis will decide the user fee and, to ensure that sustainability of the scheme as well. So how are things going to work on the ground level? Because as you said, it's a state subject as well. So the state government's involvement will also be very important here.
No, it will be very, very important. But very much like the Swachh Bharat mission, where women went from being beneficiaries to actually getting empowered and playing leadership roles. Similarly, under the Jal Jeevan Mission, as mentioned by the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday, the Pani Samitis will have at least 50% representation by women, but hopefully much more, even going up to 100%. So women who have borne the brunt and the drudgery of fetching water from long distances will now be in a situation to take the lead in this program, determine what kind of technology they want, what kind of scheme they want, and as the Pani Samiti, which will also be a statutory subcommittee of the Gram Panchayat, they'll be playing a leading role. So in many ways, they'll be shaping their own destiny. And this program, the primary beneficiaries, just to repeat again, will be the women. And as announced by the Prime Minister both yesterday and on 15th August.
Okay, Mr. Iyer, thank you. Stay with us. We'll come back to you for more to try and understand the other aspects and how it integrates well with the other schemes also. Let me first bring in Dr. Sarkar here. Dr. Sarkar, the data on the decline in groundwater level is something which makes us think twice as to whether or not we will be able to have these resources with us. And schemes like this, if they're implemented in the manner which the government intends to do, how will both things work in tandem with each other? Because one is ensuring that everybody, every household, rural household, has tap water connection, and second is to ensure that there is water in those taps.
You are absolutely correct, because it's not only connection of tap to the individual household, it is the fact that you have to supply water. And if you look at the macro level, the water availability and the water demand, there is a mismatch we expect in the near future. For example, by 2050, it is expected that in the business as usual scenario, the total supply of water and the total demand of water will be very high. There is a big gap. So that means the demand of water will be much more than the supply of water. So while the idea of giving connection is extremely fantastic, is a well conceived and long overdue program, but the sustainability of the program is an issue, is a big challenge to the policy makers. One of the issue we will face is that the water managers who will be implementing this program, they are in position of giving the idea of the 20th century's water program, but they have to work in the 21st century's water program, which they are not used to do that. So the mindset of those water managers or those who will be implementing this program has to be changed towards this direction, that not only you give connection, you have to maintain the water services, you have to maintain this, you have to sustain the water availability at the doorstep of the people.
Okay.
Secondly, from 18% to 100% is a very fantastic idea, and that too in 2024, which is well before the Sustainable Development Goal target. It is saying Sustainable Development target says that by 2030 you have to have affordable and universal water and safe water to every household. So the government has announced 2024. It is a very novel idea, but the issue is that we have to maintain it. We have to maintain this availability and sustainability over a long period of time, which is a big challenge as far as this program is concerned.
Okay. And
second one is that even today, we have people who are marginally situated. For example, in the city area, there is a peripheral population, there is a marginal population, there is a rural population. How to supply connection? Should it be piped water, or should it be some other decentralized solutions? That has to be also to be thought of, because it is very impossible to give water to everybody through pipe, because physically it is difficult.
Okay.
So this could be the challenge to the implementer of this program.
Okay. We'll come to the other aspect as well as to how the maintainability and sustainability can be done, and we'll go to this Secretary, Mr. Iyer also. But let me first bring in Urmi here. Urmi, you keep a close watch on the developments in this sector. This seems a very uphill task, 5 years, taking it from 18% to 100%. But the operational guideline, and if you take a closer look at that, the involvement of the people which the guidelines envisage, do you think they'll make it easier than it looks like right now?
Well, it is a moonshot. And the fact that, first in drawing up these operational guidelines, you have had wide consultations with all kinds of groups, which is like all kinds of stakeholders, including NGOs, CSOs, consultants, and of course, I presume local citizens group. It could make it easier. But having said that, I mean, it's always sometimes easier to draw up a plan than to implement it. And I think the guidelines themselves reflect this understanding. So you'll realize that there is this whole issue about monitoring and the use of technology for monitoring, or asking the the village group to come up with water action plan, which looks at source and maintenance of sources, supply, and grey water management. So in a sense, there is a realization of how uphill this task is, how you need to get everybody involved. There's an attempt to at least highlight the possible areas where problems may arise.
Okay.
Having said that, it's still an uphill task. But then moonshots are generally like that.
Okay, and there has been schemes which have been successful. The model is the Swachh Bharat mission, as the Secretary was saying, and we have seen how successful that has been. But let me bring in Mr. Iyer again here. Mr. Iyer, it's not the only scheme when we talk about ensuring drinking water for the general population. That's Jal Jeevan Mission. We have other schemes running as well. One is Atal Bhujal Yojana and few others as well. So how will these schemes complement each other? What is it that you're trying to work on, a model wherein these schemes either don't overlap or work at cross purposes?
No, I think excellent point and very good points made by the other two panelists. Let me just take them one by one to make a couple of points. First of all, I think it's important to recognize, as the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned yesterday and earlier, that this is the first time in the history of the Indian government in the water sector where there has been institutional integration. Prior to 3 months ago, or before the second term of this government, over a long period, water was institutionally fragmented in many different ministries. So this government created the Ministry of Jal Shakti, which integrated both the water resource management part and the service delivery of both drinking water and sanitation. So now we have got an integrated ministry which takes a holistic look at water management. And we have one minister for Jal Shakti. That's the name of the ministry. That's the point made by the Prime Minister. So now this is where groundwater management, source sustainability, which will come in through the newly launched Atal Bhujal Yojana, which is about more effective groundwater management, which is going to be very critically complementary with the Jal Jeevan mission, where a large part of the Jal Jeevan program will depend on groundwater. So source sustainability will come through better groundwater management, recharge, source sustainability. We're very clear that in this program, unlike previous programs, the source sustainability, recharge, whether we're looking at rainwater harvesting or other ways of recharging, will become mandatory. Drinking water will be provided through the distribution system. And then to complete the cycle, we will also have grey water management mentioned by your panelists, which will look both at minimal treatment, recharging, as well as use for agriculture. So it's an end-to-end integrated solution. So I think that's very important to understand.
Okay.
The second point, which is again, which was mentioned by one of your panelists, is how are you going to reach the remote, hard to reach, weaker sections? So for the most part, this is about providing a functional household tap connection. And we repeat that because the definition of that is it should have adequate quantity, quality, and it should be reliable, and it should provide a minimum level of service and water on a regular basis. But this is where the community needs to take charge. So that village water plan, which will be prepared at the local level, the women will play a leading role in that. They'll prepare their own plan, and for the most part they'll be implementing it themselves. And therefore it will become another Jan Andolan. As the Prime Minister mentioned repeatedly yesterday, they need to take charge of this program, because it cannot be just another Sarkari program. And the third part, the use of technology. This is going to become critically important going forward. That, as you mentioned, space technology, aquifer mapping, but also 3D contour mapping to decide the slopes, so that the grey water, when it comes out, what is the flow of that, what's the best way of treating it. the monitoring of the program through sensors, in case there are leakages and breakdowns. All this is going to be introduced, but put in the local context. So we see this program drawing upon 21st century technology, but to provide a basic need, which should have been done a long ago, but now is being taken on head on.
Okay, Mr. Iyer. Dr. Sarkar, does that answer, some of the apprehensions which we raised in terms of maintainability and sustainability of the sources, as Mr. Iyer pointed out, in terms of how the government plans to ensure that?
You see, the water is a sector where it is a state subject basically. So a state's governance is very important as far as the water management is concerned. While at the central level we have the integration of the integrated ministry, the Jal Shakti ministry has come in recent times. There is no parallel kind of convergence in the state government, the state where the water management has to be done by those water managers. So the water manager are still divided in the state as we had seen in the central level and the earlier regime. So that will take time, because that is a big challenge for the policy maker, how to integrate those policies, instruments at the state level in cohesion, in meeting the objective what the Jal Shakti, Jal Jeevan mission is talking of. Now, so that is where the change of mindset, which I was just talking about a few minutes earlier, the change of mindset of the water managers at the state is very important.
Okay.
Their capacity building is very important. They have to understand that the synergy between the surface water and the groundwater, how the management can be done in the proper context. They have to understand that the business as usual scenario is not enough to meet the requirement of the people. So the understanding and the methodology they have to adopt is very important.
Okay.
Second point is that the digitalization of, there is a lot of scope of the Jal Jeevan mission digitalization. For example, the grey water digitalization, the planning, the designing, the implementing, or the digital aspects of the Jal Jeevan mission is very important, and this will be very important aspects of those water manager will face. So unless they are trained or they are exposed to this kind of new concept, it will be very difficult for them to move as quickly as possible.
Okay. Urmi, water managers, as both Mr. Iyer is pointing out and Dr. Sarkar is focusing on that as well, their role is going to be really important. And so will be that coordination between the center and the state here, because it's at, all 4 or 5 levels. It's not only about just the central government or the state governments. It's going to be at the district level, the Gram Panchayat level, then there'll be subcommittees, Pani Samitis, and as Mr. Iyer pointed out, women will play a very important role there.
Yeah, it will require a great deal of coordination. But going to the earlier question about, getting all the water concerns mapped. Yes, it's right that the Atal Bhujal mission is also focuses on groundwater, which is analogous to this scheme. But equally important is the fact that we should be paying attention to how we treat our fresh water bodies, like the rivers. Apportionment, these are things that need to be spoken about. We haven't ever had a policy that looks at how different sectors draw water from the rivers, how much they can use. That kind of planning needs to happen, as well as working with yet another set of people, which is like the Environment Ministry or the Environment Departments on wetlands preservation, all of which have to come together. It is true that when you look at it that way, we are asking a lot of our water managers. One is working through different levels, both horizontally and vertically, but also looking at doing things in a completely different way. And I think one important area would be capacity building of the water managers, but also by breaking it down to the village level and district level and state level. I think it can also be is a way out. It's making it manageable, because when you bring down the issue of water, which is crucial for life, to the operational level, your approach to it changes. You know exactly how, because for so long women, say in villages, have had to traverse great distances to get water. Your approach to managing it is also somewhat practical. So getting that knowledge in together with technology, you have to marry the practical to the aspirational to the technological, and that's the only way forward. Doesn't change the fact it's a tall task, but I mean, there is no other way out.
Okay, so that's something which Mr. Iyer was pointing out, the focus that is why on using technology. But Mr. Iyer, two aspects here, in my last question to you. One is that focus on the water manager, and second, as Urmi is pointing out, if you look at the larger picture, the broader picture, you will have to look at other resources as well, and maybe a bit more coordinated effort by not only the Jal Shakti Ministry departments, but the other ministries as well.
No, absolutely. I think, the creation of the Jal Shakti Ministry was a very important first step, but clearly there will have to be coordination, because water is everyone's business. As Urmi mentioned, the Ministry of Environment. So integrated water management involves looking at rivers, at dams, at groundwater, at drinking water, and that's precisely what we're trying to do. Capacity building, again, is going to be fundamental at the core of this program at all levels, as was mentioned. And then we are also integrating with the skill development ministry, because we're going to need all kinds of skills at the local levels, whether they're plumbers or fitters or masons. So that is also planned in coordination and partnership with other ministries involving the private sector. So there's going to be a big role for all the different stakeholders. But another important point is, how do we get integrated water management into the school curriculum? We are already in discussions with the Ministry of Human Resource Development to do that. And one important point I think we should all understand, as the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned yesterday, fortunately, both he himself and my minister, Mr. Shekhawat, who is from Rajasthan, are from water-scarce, water-stressed states, who understand from the ground level the challenges of water management. They've got phenomenal experience, and it's under their leadership and guidance that this program will be rolled out.
Okay. So, Dr. Sarkar and Urmi, concluding comments from you on the way forward from here. How do you see things happening? Dr. Sarkar first.
I think this is a novel initiative. There is no doubt about that. Because this is a part of the Sustainable Development Goals which India is committed to achieve by 2030. But there are many challenges. The challenges are on many fronts. But if the managers, water managers, and the policy makers are committed, definitely it will be achieved. But there will be certain degree of initiative required at all levels, and particularly a couple of things which are very important, because the concept of user fee is very novel concept, because that gives this is a signal that the water is a precious commodity. It has to be used with proper care, and so it is a economic object. You should not use it free of cost. Second is that the involvement of the community, which is long overdue in the water sector, which has been done in this program.
Okay.
So I think the outlines are quite good. Big challenges we have to face, but I am sure that the government will have the necessary means to do that.
Okay, Urmi?
That 70 years after independence, nearly 82% of our rural households don't have a functional household tap is kind of it's criminal at one level. So the fact that you have a program trying to do that is great. What is also important is that we are in a period of time when climate change is a real issue. Water is one area where we'll feel the stress the most. So this is a perfect opportunity, actually, not only to meet this unmet requirement, but also to reorient our water systems, whether it's because of a user fee, because of incorporating sustainability practices into the program, getting communities involved so that it becomes real and practical. The other part of this program which is interesting is that it is not a one size fits all. So you will have variations with an overarching requirement of targets which will have to be met, but you will have a program or a scheme laid out, hopefully, that will take into account the variations in each place and also other areas, whether it's groundwater recharging, conservation, better usage. These are the issues that will need to be tackled. The road ahead is not easy, but at least you're set on the road.
Okay, thank you so much, Urmi, there, Dr. Sarkar and Mr. Iyer as well. So as our panelists pointed out, clearly the road ahead is not easy, and it is going to be an uphill task to ensure that from 18% the coverage in terms of rural households for the tap water connection goes to 100% in just 5 years. But as our panelists were pointing out, and the government's guidelines seem to suggest that they are prepared for this kind of challenge.